In case you're not familiar with Midwest Women's Herbal, we're a women-led and women-empowered organization. We've been producing herbal in-person events and virtual events for over 14 years. To find out more, you can visit our website, midwestwomensherbal.com, or you can visit our virtual classroom page at herbwomenclassroom.com. We're delighted that you're with us this evening for tonight's free community conversation. The topic is For the Love of Mushrooms with Mariah Rogers and Linda Conroy. I'm happy to have other coordinating team members. It takes a strong village to put events like this on, the conferences. So if you're a coordinator with Midwest Women's Herbal, go ahead and give a wave, and we appreciate that you're all here. So we have behind the scenes tonight, Courtney Hanson will be handling some tech support. As we go along through the evening, she'll post links in the website or website links in the chat. And if you need anything, go ahead and send her a direct message or send us an email at herbwomen@gmail.com. And we like to begin our events by reading our mission and vision statement. And I'm going to take care of that for you all tonight. Our mission statement is Midwest Women's Herbal provides herbal education and opportunities for transformation. Immersed in the tradition of the village herbalist, grandmothers, mothers, daughters, sisters, and children gather in a co-created village. Through earth-centered healing and nourishment, we ally with the plants that grow around us. From the ground up, we connect to weave ourselves, our families, and our communities into the dynamic spiral of health. Midwest Women's Herbal Vision Statement says, we live in a world where the feminine is honored and respected, where women stand fully in their power, acknowledging their wisdom, skills, and innate healing abilities. All right. In the coming days, we'll be sending you some emails with special offers. We want to make sure that you receive them. Sometimes emails can go into spam, as you all know. So you can add herbwomen@gmail.com to your contact list, or when you get some of the follow-up emails from tonight's conversation, you can respond and say hello. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors who make hosting events like this possible: Moonwise Herbs, Mountain Rose Herbs, Host Defense Mushrooms, Goodland Creative, DNA Hemp, Wisconsin Mycological Society, Driftless Folk School, Herbs on the Side, Frontier Co-op, Herb Farm, Pacific Botanicals, and Natural Awakenings Magazine. If you're interested in learning about sponsorship opportunities or know somebody that would be a good match with our vision and mission statement, please visit midwestwomenherbal.com. We're thrilled to announce that registration is open for the 9th annual Mycelium Mysteries, a women's mushroom conference. So you can join us for this transformative weekend where fungi and the feminine meet. And this is September 19th through the 21st at the beautiful Camp Helen Brockman in Allman, Wisconsin. It's 5 weeks away. And we've been sharing some of the community conversations the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months or so. And you can watch some of those, and we'll put that link in for some of the past community conversations in the chat. And we've featured our keynote speaker, one of our keynote speakers, Barbara Bodakova. We've talked with Ingrid Doddart, and she's going to be sharing some foundations in mushrooms and showing some shiitake inoculation, log inoculation for the weekend. So be sure to check those out. At Midwest Women's Herbal, we believe that learning should be accessible year-round. We happily bring a variety of herbal learning experiences directly to you via the Herb Women Classroom. Here you'll find a rich selection of intentionally crafted learning packages, individual workshops, and full conference recording packages that you can enjoy all year long. There's always something new to discover at the Herb Women Classroom. We also have at the Herb Women Classroom a community membership that has different levels. There's the seed level, the sprout level, the growth level, and you can receive monthly recordings, quarterly learning packages. You can get membership or registration to the On Our Own Hands Winter Wellness Series. And we'll put that link in there. Courtney already did it, the herbwomenclassroom.com. And the podia.com community is the link to those community conversations. And we've just announced that workshop proposal applications are open and being accepted for the 2026 Midwest Women's Herbal Conference. And that full recording package from 2025 is at the Herb Women classroom right now. And yeah, so we're excited to be delving into some applications for the spring. So our guest, Mariah Rogers, will be introduced in a few moments. In the meantime, I'd like to share at the end of tonight's conversation, you'll have an opportunity to win. And I brought mine this time. I keep saying I'll do it, and I did it. You can win a mushroom apron. This is our Mycelium Mysteries mushroom apron. There's a variety of colors. I'm not sure which color you're going to get. Mine's purple. We're going to give away two different workshop recordings, our collaborative Myco book with Mariah Rogers and Basic Foundations of Mushrooms with Ingrid Doddart. And then also, this is really great. You're going to want to stick around for this. A registration to the in-person pre-conference of Fun and Fungal Walk in the Woods with your friend Rose Tercy. And that's on Friday morning from 9 to 12. So she's leading a 3-hour foray into the woods. So if you want to learn how to identify mushrooms, start to tune your eyes in on how to see them in the woods, you're going to want to join Rose. And Rose is full of all kinds of interesting information and knowledge. She'll tell you about the different states that are now starting to have an official mushroom, like they do a tree, a flower, an insect or mammal or whatever. Now the states are starting to incorporate the mushrooms. And I think Illinois just did theirs within the last year, and ours is a giant puffball. So she knows that. She knows a lot about women in mycology, and she's very entertaining. You'll be thrilled to join Rose on that pre-conference walk. You need to be present to win any of these, so be sure to stay till the end. For tonight, keep all your questions and comments in the chat focused on tonight's topic. If any resources, books, things like that are mentioned, we'll put them in the chat tonight, and then we'll include those on a follow-up email as well. And so you can stay focused on the content. At this time, I'm honored to introduce Linda Conroy. She's the visionary and founder of Midwest Women's Herbal and the owner of Moonwise Herbs. Also the founder of Mycelium Mysteries and the In Our Own Hands workshop, or the In Our Own Hands Winter Wellness Series. Linda's a bioregional herbalist who's been practicing and teaching herbalism for over 30 years. She offers in-person and virtual herbal apprenticeships, and she teaches a wide variety of topics: soap making, cheese making, wild medicine, wild food. So check out moonwiseherbs.com and look at her calendar and see if you'd like to join her for something there. I'm grateful that I spent some time with Linda as an apprentice. I spent 3 years with her as an apprentice, 1 year as an intern. And some of the things I learned really inspired me to join the Midwest Women's Herbal community. And I love supporting women-centered events like this. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Linda Conroy.
Thank you, Sherry. Grateful for your willingness to take lead here and for all the work that you do on the conference. I know you've been really dedicated for the past couple of years, and it's super appreciated. So thank you.
Welcome.
And for your enthusiasm about mushrooms. That's been a delight to watch you grow into that. So thank you. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I am Linda Conroy, as Sherry said, and I started Mycelium Mysteries, the Women's Mushroom Conference, 9 years ago, because I was at our conference site in the fall, which I hadn't been before. I was always there in the spring, and I was there in the fall, and everywhere I stepped, there was a mushroom, and I thought, we need a mushroom conference. We started the Mycelium Mysteries Women's Mushroom Conference, and one of the things that fascinates me in correlation to women's work and mushrooms is that mycelium is the underground network. And I feel like women network that way. We network underground, and we talk to each other, and then we get ideas and we inspire each other. So I'm delighted to have this conversation this evening because our guest, Mariah Rogers, I met her at one of the Wisconsin Mycological Association events. and just started talking to her, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love how she thinks. She's really um looking closely at the mushrooms, and she's obviously a mycophile, and she's obviously in love with the mushrooms. I really want her to come to Mycelium Mysteries and teach. So I started like nudging her a little bit, and it didn't take much though, because she loved to share. Is one thing I've noticed about Mariah. She's really it's contagious, her love for mushrooms, which is why we called this talk for the love of mushrooms. So I want to read to you Mariah's bio because I don't want to miss anything. Um, so I'm going to read it, and then I'll just say a few more words, and then I'll invite Mariah in for a conversation. So Mariah Rogers is the president of the Wisconsin Mycological Society, and that is new this year. Congratulations, Mariah, on that. And a graduate student pursuing an MSc in biology at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse in the lab of Dr. Arthur Group. Her research focuses on the diversity of truffle forming fungi in the Midwest of North America. Mariah loves the community around fungi in Wisconsin just as much as, sorry, my lettering got cut off, just as much as the fungi themselves. Please say hello and show her all your mushroom photos. And that's her bio from the conference. So if you're going to the conference, she wants you to say hello and show you all her photos. But tonight, we're going to talk with her, and you'll have an opportunity if you want to ask some questions along the way as well. So with that introduction, I'm super excited to talk to Mariah. Every time I talk to her, I learn stuff, and I get more excited about mushrooms. And so welcome, Mariah. Thanks for being here.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here.
Mm-hmm. It's always a delight to spend time with you and talk about mushrooms. So I know we were talking a little bit before the call, and one of the things I wasn't really sure that I had the information about, and I'm really curious about your story about how you came to love mushrooms and become a myco. What was that spark for you that really led you down the road to, here you are in graduate school, and here you are a very young person as the president of the Mycological Association.
Well, I am about to turn 33, but I do get carded because of the round cheeks. But yeah,
You're still young. You're half
it's
my
still,
age.
yeah, thank you. Um, but I guess when I was really little, I was just telling you earlier, it's like I don't have solid memories of being particularly noticing the fungi, which is so weird to me now because I go outside and they're everywhere. There's no way I wasn't stepping on them, rolling on them, probably having my face up right by them because I was a very nature-centered child. I was all about, like, I would look at little mites, that the little red velvet mites on the rock, and watch them for hours and that kind of thing. So that I didn't notice the fungi back then disturbs me almost. Which I guess it was that kind of sense of unease that there was some big something in biology, which was my passion, as I said, for a long time, and developed kind of into like more academic biology. But by the time I was in college, I'm finishing up my degree, and it's kind of like we talked about yeasts. And we talked about yeasts, and that was it, and I was thinking to myself at the end, they're asking me to do a big project. I'm allegedly graduating with a degree in biology. What am I missing? And, there had at that point around like 2015, 2016, there were plenty of news stories and books and things kind of bubbling up in the popular consciousness about fungi, and I had heard about their bioremediation potential. And I was very interested in bioremediation because, there's a lot of toxic waste sites and a lot of concern around that. So at the beginning, it was very much like, oh, I'm interested in what they can do. I'm interested in these facts about them. But I had not really touched them or learned them on the trail, which, as you guys know, especially learning from more of an herbalist tradition, you don't know them. I'm reading papers, I'm reading books, I'm writing a thesis, and I was still like not IDing them. And it was honestly one of the botany professors at Ripon, which was the college I was going to, who was like, I think in the question portion of my senior thesis, asking questions like, so what's that mushroom? What does it look like? I guess probably from more of the botany perspective. And I was like, okay, I need to learn this. So after I had kind of dipped my toe in the water, it was weird. I was a student who never really settled down. I was always moving to a different topic, getting really interested in it, then moving on and never being able to hold myself. And it was to the point that I was like, maybe I can't go on in biology because you kind of have to find your thing. They don't let you go to graduate school for general whatever. I guess I'm reading whatever today, or at least they don't in biology. You have to find something, you have to define a project, and you have to care about it for multiple years, which I was worried I wasn't going to be able to do. So I'm really, really lucky it kind of bubbled up. It took me a number of years after that. I did not graduate undergrad and go straight into things. I graduated and kind of bopped around, odd jobs. Luckily ran into a poster for the Wisconsin Mycological Society, or my sister did, and she sent it to me, and I went to a presentation or two, got really hooked. They were so welcoming, got immediately, Melissa Klocka coming up to me and being like, do you have a ride to this event? Like, she doesn't know me. She's like, we need to be sure that you're getting to the summer picnic. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that kind of like, I guess I like an aggressively welcoming atmosphere, which is why I like Mycelium Mysteries too. Like, and I say aggressive, but in the kindest way, like in the like, we're gonna notice that you're being left out and pull you
So
in.
being
And
included.
yeah, that was kind of like I had that community, and I think that's what sustained me, because it's not like all those other topics that I was interested in weren't good. I'm still interested in a lot of them, but to have the people who will teach me how to cook it, the people who will teach me how to have medicine from it, the people who will teach me how to make art with it, the people who will make up silly songs with me about it, and I'm doing the research. That's what actually has allowed me to have that like fire that kind of keeps going and being enthusiastic about it. And then after that, it was honestly learning through the community mycology networks that made me feel competent enough to, despite a relatively low GPA, because I wasn't that great at time management back in the day, and was constantly jumping around. As I said, that doesn't really work when you're trying to complete your assignments on time. But despite that, despite not being the ideal student on paper, it's like if you prove yourself through these community science networks, which don't exist for every field, but it does for mycology, that's what got me into graduate school, I think, in a lot of ways. And now not doing bad on the GPA. So yeah, and yeah, seeing them on the trail, like touching them with my hands, having people teach it to me, being like, you see it bends like this, that also really kind of makes a difference. There's a lab aspect, but there's also a out in nature aspect and everything in between.
Yeah, it sounds like the multi-dimensional aspect
Mm-hmm.
of this. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that intrigues me about it too, about mushrooms, is it's a pioneering field too, right? Like there's so much still to discover.
Yeah, it's exciting for that reason. It's like it's exciting you can see so many different research hooks even at a low level. You can involve the community in the research projects, in part because it's not like we're filling out the fine details. We're like filling out some pretty fundamental stuff, especially just like the map of what's even here, monitoring. And yeah, also those ecosystem connections. I didn't even mention that. Just kind of that moment where I was like, this is a vantage point. If I study this, I'm at a center of a little web of things that's connecting to everything else I'm interested in, but is an unexplored, kind of shadowy, relatively speaking, corner of it. It's not shadowy because it's not central. It's central and shadowy. Not to diminish other people's fields that might be more about some less central to like the food webs and things, but honestly it's also felt big in that way. Like this is kind of a good moment for somebody like me to look into things, and a lot of other people. I really hope there will be more mycologists. You kind of create your own job field in that way if enough of you exist.
Well, and there's so many different interrelated pieces. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
all the other fields, like there's going to be some intersection there. Like one of the things that was really blew me away, I've been a practicing herbalist for 30 years, and it really, I previously would learn one mushroom a year, and I was a little nervous. And then, you know, like a lot of people about mushrooms. And then, you know, like 20 years in, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, mushrooms are amazing. And they're interconnected. They aren't separate from what I'm doing. And so, you know, we're looking at, you know, Juliana Furkey talks about, you know, bringing in the flora, fauna, and fungi. And as
Mhm.
you so really eloquently spoke to, is it's left out. It's, you know, mushrooms aren't included. And now we're starting to see them be more included and being recognized on every level. And there's just so much to explore. I'm wondering if you could because you know we can talk philosophically and big picture, but I think sometimes it helps people who are sitting with us in these conversations to talk about some specifics. And I'm wondering if you might be able to just talk a little bit about some specific interconnections between certain environments and certain mushrooms.
Yeah, I was just talking to another WMS member about the unfortunate past history of sometimes people poaching our sites. As in, we teach people at certain sites that we've developed over the years as like pretty reliable sites at our forays. And it's not poaching to go back to them, but when you know that our event is this day and you go that day an hour before or the previous day at the end of the day, that's not enough recovery time. And you know what you were doing. And one of the person who was kind of like relating this to me said, yeah, and I had said, you know, why don't you know, you've been with us for a while. Why don't you go find your own sites? And he was like, oh, I don't know the land. I don't know the associations. I can't read the landscape. It's like, he knew it was what he needed to learn. And I guess, you know, we've all had something that maybe we've struggled to learn, but I really feel like it's no excuse because there's a number of like really solid ones you can learn for certain species because they're associated with, you know, if they're decaying a type of wood, they'll be on a certain type of wood. If they have a relationship like ectomycorrhizae with a tree, they will be with a certain set of trees. And then you can just kind of learn other tips and tricks as you go, build up the profile. If you go to enough sites like that in the right season, it'll be good. So one of the ones I would highlight for people right now is red oaks and chanterelles. Chanterelles are pretty popping right now, and they really love a red oak. That's one specific species of chanterelle. There's other species that really love balsam fir. They're ones associated with birch. But like for most of Wisconsin, you'll have a red oak. Not everywhere in Wisconsin, but seek those out and see what you find. And then those are fun too because they're great for beginners in terms of you're not going to mix them up with too much, especially if you take the time to really look at the jack-o'-lantern fungi, Omphallotus illudens, get the sense of true gill versus false gill. A couple other different tricks about the difference between those two things I could get into if you want, but basically few poisonous lookalikes, and that one jack-o'-lantern fungi that is poisonous, it's not gonna kill you unless you were, I guess, eating a lot of it and maybe very dehydrated. It's gonna make you very sick. And it's if you look up pictures of it, it doesn't really look like chanterelles. So
Well, and, you know,
yeah,
one of the identifying characteristics for chanterelles that I always point people to is how it feels kind of waxy.
yeah,
And I mean, there's definitely distinctions, and they're not quite as orange as the jack-o'-lanterns.
exactly. Even if they vary in color and they're not going to have the same stature, they're not going to have the same like stipe coming up and then meeting the gills, which are true gills that are hanging down. And when you rip open a mature jack-o'-lantern, the flesh is kind of orange. It's not going to be pure white. You rip open a chanterelle unless it's old and you probably don't want it anyway. It's going to be white in there.
Right.
And
So
also,
what we're
yeah,
talking about, just to kind of
yeah, go
summarize for
back to the,
people, is because you know we can talk about this, and sometimes we have people who don't know any of this, so summarizing it is helpful. So we're talking about the big picture, and the big picture is, you know, you want to get to know the relationships that mushrooms have with their
yes.
environment, and many mushrooms have an association with certain trees.
And
And
a lot of
then
times, although Oh, sorry, go
Let
ahead.
me just say one more thing. Then the next step when you look for your environment, then is to start to look for the specific mushroom and then look at the details of the mushroom. And of
Mhm.
course, you want to look at the details we're describing. And then of course, the final step, and you might want to say a couple words about this, is to do a spore print, because you really want to make sure that you know what the color of the spores are, because that'll be a distinction between the different mushrooms specifically.
Yeah, many times that is like a pretty specific characteristic difference for certain ones. Like I would say, honey mushrooms and deadly Galerina or funeral bells. The deadly Galerina is going to be a brown spore print. The honey mushroom is going to be pale. And even though you can learn lots of other features to tell the difference, it's like if you're new to it, that's a really good, like, okay, I looked at it. And then to get a spore print, you can get that usually pretty directly. Like it's not doesn't have to be like way overnight. Usually, sometimes you have to, but I'll usually just set it up under a little cup, crack the cup a little bit, setting the mushroom with the gills down, like picked it off the stipe onto some paper. A lot of people say like get a dark piece of paper and a light piece of paper or a piece of tinfoil so you could see both dark and light spores. Then wait a minute, or really more like an hour plus, and then I'll go back and check. And sometimes I'm not patient enough, but eventually you'll see something. You can also look on nearby stuff just in the woods, like the spores. If you've seen for like artist bracket or artist conch or Ganoderma masuge, the reishi, it's relative. It's like those spores will be dark brown, and when they fall out, when they sporulate, they're statically charged, so they end up flipping up to the top of the cap
Right,
the
right.
mushrooms. So sometimes you could just see them on the mushrooms, either drop down or flipped around. Um,
And
a lot
gosh,
of
what
cool.
an amazing adaptation, right?
Yeah, and that's honestly that's another really good one to point out, an association that I do know for sure because is Ganoderma suge, and I'll write that in the chat because I know hearing people say it.
And that's a type of reishi, if
That's
anybody.
that's like they also call it the hemlock varnish shelf, which also gives you a clue about what I'm about to say. But it associates with hemlock trees, or the suga is the genus for that. So that's what they named it. So suga for the genus of the tree is the thing I just is the thing right above that, and then the mushrooms above that. But yeah, we call that reishi. The like thing originally called reishi is its relative Ganoderma lucidum, and I think some other ones, but lucidum's the one I most hear about. But this one, it's like it's related and it has a lot of the same like physical properties too. Because I hear about people using artist conch, the Ganoderma applanatum, also sometimes. But it's like you think about cutting that, it's not a good time, I'd imagine. Versus the Ganoderma suge, like just like lucidum, it's an annual bracket, so it's producing like one mushroom and then they're done for the year. They're like so they don't need to be hard, right? Whereas a Ganoderma applanatum, the artist conch, those are making a new layer every year. So not only do I not really want to take them down if they're still going, because I just kind of want them to keep, I want to see how big they get. But also they're just hard.
They can
They
be
have to be.
ancient. I mean, it's
Mhm.
amazing to me if you count the rings, so to speak, the growth of those. It's amazing how old they can be.
Mhm. Sorry, I'm adding the Latin name. I realized I broke my own rule. I mentioned a Latin name without writing it.
That's
Um,
okay.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
and
you find those on hemlock. You find the hemlock stumps, and that's where they're gonna be.
so do you want to say a couple words about why it's helpful to learn the scientific names? Because
Yeah.
sometimes I know people are intimidated by that, but I find it, one, fascinating because sometimes it gives you clues, and two, it's a universal language that helps us speak to each other. Do you want to speak about that? Just that why it's worth the effort to learn them?
I think it's a very many-fold process in a lot of ways. And everyone's going to approach it differently. I think that once you realize that it's its own language and you think about it like that if I learn enough of these things, the same root parts will come back to me. Because even though it's kind of a grab bag, you'll see names named after people like Ricardii, and it's named after like Richard, um, and things like that. But there's some Still, despite that, I mean, English is kind of like that anyway, where we're a grab bag language, but you have a lot of Latin roots. So if you know any Latinate language, you're going to kind of be tuned into that already. You're going to have a lot of Greek roots, which a lot of English words, especially like the any science or medicine medical terms, will already be coming to you from Greek. So like there's a lot of things where there's a richness there of connections to other languages you might know, or terminology you might also learn. So it's not just like, oh, I'm learning this one thing and it's abstract and I'll never get to use it in any other context. You build it up and you learn, like, lucidum, lucid means light. What does that mean? Or, candida means also white. So what does that mean? And then, like, what does that mean for my organism? But also now when I hear that root part in other contexts, oh, I have this little extra bit of a clue about what's going on, which is what makes it a language. But then there's other things like the endings. Like once I've learned the endings of, you can look up for any taxonomic list or a ranking system for fungi. It's like ACA at the end. I'll write that real quick. And I'm doing like a dash to represent that's the ending. ACA is the family level. So if I hear somebody say any like Cantharellacea, I know they're talking about the Cantharellus the family that chanterelles are in, and there's going to be other things in it too, but it's going to be the family chanterelles are in, because I know Cantharellus is chanterelle. I know ACA. So you get all these kind of like clues where if I were just overhearing a conversation between two mycophiles and they're like, ah, yes, did you know that Craterellus is in the Cantharellacea? I might be missing out on a lot, but if I know the two genera, the two genuses, but we're supposed to say genera because that's the plural for Latin, then I have that clue. I have picked up more information from people who really know what they're talking about, probably because they're speaking in that language of mycology. There's also a lot more tools nowadays, and I feel like that also kind of gets missed for people who haven't encountered those tools before, because I know it did for me. Like going on iNaturalist, if you go to the page of any random fungal species, I'm going to put just like Trametes versicolor, because I've seen a lot of people talking about Trametes in the chat. So that's the turkey tail. If I take you to the taxa page of this mushroom, and I'm going to put that right there. If you were to go there, you would see that if you scroll down, there's a beautiful picture of turkey tail. They show you seasonality. You can limit that by region too. There's ways. You can see the map, but you can also click on this taxonomy tab. And I can't link directly to that, but it would be there, and it can show you, kingdom fungi, phylum Basidiomycota, subphylum Agaricomycotina, class Agaricomycetes, order Polyporales, family Polyploraceae, genus Trametes, and there you've gotten to the thing you know. But you can look up that chain and see all of its kind of family history, its genealogy, if you will.
And before you get
yeah,
too overwhelmed and
yeah,
too intimidated by Mariah spelling
no,
all of this off, this is what I call dirt time. And if you do one mushroom at a time and get to know it over time, you'll start to pick some of this up. So don't be intimidated. It's just take your time, one mushroom at a time,
yes.
and before you know it. So I just wanted to say that because
That's
you're
good.
saying
I'm probably yeah, I'm
you're
like, it's
saying
so
a lot.
cool, but it feels I love dirt time. That sounds
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, because you
Especially
have
when
to
you're
get out
studying truffles
there.
and digging in the dirt and mostly not finding them. You do have to put in dirt time. But
Yes,
there is a lot of
literally.
there's so much rewarding. And the other thing that I would say about it is it's honestly been a relatively healing experience for me to face because I love biology and I came from being trained in it in an academic setting, but I still was like at the very beginning, very like, if I pronounce it wrong, oh no, people are gonna laugh at me or people are gonna think that I don't know what I'm talking about. If I mix up those names, which I still do, people aren't gonna believe you. And if you get through that, it has made me so much calmer in all sorts of other aspects of my life. So kind of challenging yourself with these things. Sometimes the thing that you're shying away from is exactly the hurdle that you kind of have to get past. And I've definitely experienced that with the Latin terminology that just say it wrong, just get it
Well, I mean,
wrong.
I love about the mushroom world, the people that I encounter, is how encouraging of citizen
Yeah.
science it is. So even people who, are more academic are really see citizen scientists as an important playing an important role. And so I never, even if I pronounce it wrong, I don't really feel intimidated. And if someone tells me the correct way to say it, I'm happy for the correction. I
Yeah.
want to go into the chat because there were a couple questions that came up earlier, and I want to make sure we don't miss them. One were that somebody was asking, you mentioned red oaks and birch, and what was the third tree that you said for
Balsam
turtles?
fir.
Balsam fir. Okay.
And those ones have
All right.
really distinctive bark with little resin packets in them, which is also how I messed up the UV coating on my glasses. Don't pop them with your face nearby.
Yes.
That's my other hot tip.
And I wanted to mention, I'm not so sure you're going to feel comfortable answering this, but I don't want to ignore it. Somebody was asking about, working with cancer and oncology and mushrooms. And, that's a really big topic. There is a really good book called Medicinal Mushrooms by, oh gosh, I'm not thinking of the author, Shori or Courtney. Maybe you can pop the book and the author in the chat. The dosage for working with cancer and mushrooms is really not, I don't think it's a root thing. I don't think we can just say, you need to take this much if you're dealing with cancer. But one of the things as an herbalist that I've found is that most of the mushrooms like turkey tail that we work with, they're basically food and medicine. And there's not really a lethal dose of turkey tails. So I like drinking it as a tea more than taking a tincture, but you can't really overdo it. So you can take the recommended daily dosage for most tinctures is 40 to 60 drops as a starting point, and then you can increase from there. So I just wanted to say that and give some resources. I don't know, Mariah, if you do anything to say about that, but I didn't want to totally ignore that topic. And that is a whole nother topic that Cornelia Cho will be doing a medicinal mushroom class at the conference at Mycelium Mysteries, focusing a couple hours on that topic.
That is awesome, and I really appreciate you answering that because that is not my main wheelhouse. I can help you find the turkey tails. I can help you go and do a Google Scholar search and see what papers come up. But yeah, although I have had the tea and I enjoy powder in the smoothie somebody is recommending too. That would also be good. And that is just for anyone who is wondering what I'm talking about. And it's that there's a version of Google you can get to that pulls up scholarly articles. It's kind of more, like they have an inclusion list of what journals. You can still run into bad research, as can always happen. So still kind of like carefully vet the journal if you wanted to be really sure. But if you were looking for something to take to your doctor, be like, here's the literature, or it might be helpful, or finding clinical trials. I've definitely had some questions come in to the Wisconsin Mycological Society email where usually I wouldn't answer, but I felt particularly moved by the person's, difficulties with the health problems, and looked into things and then found papers that were actually substantiating what she was, like curious about. Does this mushroom help this? I'm like, well, I can't say, but I can say, here's this research. And I can say, if you go to your doctor with your specialist, because she was working with a specialist with this research, maybe your doctor, she can help you find a clinical trial using these key search terms. Maybe that can help you. But
And I do know there's a TED talk that Paul Stamets did on turkey tail and cancer and his own research and a personal experience. So we probably could do a link to his TED talk as well. And
sure.
I would actually not be in favor of utilizing powdered turkey tail in a smoothie because mushrooms need to be cooked. And so
right.
either cooking them by boiling them into a tea, or cooking them by breaking the cell walls down with your alcohol and water.
Yeah, I was imagining someone dehydrating it at a pretty high heat and then powdering. I
Yeah,
don't know.
well, just so people know, because sometimes
Yes,
people just
that's very
powder.
true. Just like blitz it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that could really upset your stomach because the cell walls have compound. They have to be broken up to make it digestible. It's not
Yeah,
digestible if you don't break it up.
with the
So
chitin.
yeah. So that would be just one thing. So that again, that this is a big topic. We will be
It
covering
is.
this. Like I said at the conference, there will be people covering these topics. And maybe we'll do a talk on this topic at some point. But back to you, Mariah, and your research. I was wondering if you could just speak briefly about what you're going to talk about at the conference, because you're going to talk about your research, looking for and learning about truffles in the Midwest, which is just fascinating.
Yeah. I wonder how many people had heard of truffles in the Midwest, or if you'd heard of truffling or searching for truffle fungi, where you'd heard it from.
Yeah, if anybody wants to pop that in the chat. I know Sarah Fulch Jordan was the first person to tell me there were truffles in the Midwest. And I was
Oh,
like, yeah,
cool.
probably about 8 or 9 years ago. I was like, really? And then I learned from Eleanor Shavitz that there were truffles in the desert
Mhm.
that she's gone hunting for. So that's just so fascinating. So do you want to tell us, like, what is a truffle and how is it classified?
Yeah, so the definition of a truffle is going to be something that, like a lot of things, the academics are going to debate. Some researchers in Europe will restrict it to a specific genus, the genus tuber, which I'll write. And that's like, if you think of like your average culinary truffle, not all of them, but many to most of them are in the genus tuber, which is also great when you're researching things because it keeps showing me pictures of potatoes. But then if you look at a tuber genus truffle, it looks like a little potato. But besides that, a lot of researchers, myself included, and most researchers in North America, will have a broader definition of a truffle. And that's going to be anything that's growing as a fungus with its fruiting body underground with the spores, the reproductive bits that are going to fly away, but they're not going to fly away. They're going to stay in that ball. So I say truffle is a nugget that's under the earth and that doesn't mature and break open. So you might see puffballs and say, is that a truffle then? Because it's got its spores on the inside, right? Then they mature, but then it will, to disperse itself, somehow crack open a bit and let those spores fly loose. These are going to usually still stay underground. They're not going to move up or anything. They're going to stay underground and stay in that nugget. How are they getting out of that nugget? They're going to stink. They're going to stink real bad or really good if you're the thing that they're trying to attract. And attract a bug, attract a squirrel, attract a person, attract a pig, attract a dog, attract a even reptiles are documented to come dig it up and eat it. And then the spores are able to travel through the digestive tract. They get pooped out. I have a few thoughts, kind of loose theories about that. Truffles tend to also be ectomycorrhizals, not all of them, but many of the species that are truffle forming tend to have these association with certain trees. You look at those trees, many of them are, nut formers, or they form cones that are attracting small mammals and other things to eat. Those stuff makes a lot of sense, right? You would have an animal come to you, eat you, take you to your favorite growing location at another tree, and poop you out with a perfect little package to get going over there. And so it's a kind of very neat ecological role they have. They're interacting with animals as part of their lifestyle, a large diversity of animals. They're interacting usually with plants like trees, often as part of our lifestyle, and they make these really interesting smells to us. And I love a smell. I smell every mushroom that I pick up, whether wise or not, and I find out.
Stinky or not, because some of them are very strong smelling, unpleasant. Yeah, fascinating. So that's where we hear of, people training pigs or dogs to help to find truffles. I know you're
Mhm.
involved with training a dog. That's super exciting and fun. Um, Another question I have is, as you're doing the research, I know you're still like evolving in your research. Can you just tell us, are there truffles in a lot of different environments around the world? Is this a common um type of it's not a fruiting body, really. And I guess there's some argument about whether it's a fruit or not, but um, is that something that you see around the world in different places?
Yes, and I think they do count as fruiting bodies as long as we're gonna be okay with using the term fruiting body for mushrooms in general. I know some people prefer spore-forming bodies to not make it sound like a mushroom is a fruit, which is true, like because 'cause we're not plants. We're even
Right.
more closely related to animals than plants. But, sometimes the old school terms slip out, but yeah, so they're making spores, so they count. They're just not doing it in the regular way, and there are ones, as you say, in the desert, and those ones seem to like, the prevailing hypothesis seems to be that they formed those truffle forms for their spores to keep the water on the inside while they're developing. But they also have a relationship with animals too. There's desert truffles that attract camels to come eat them. Um, yeah, it's part of their this part of their whole thing. And but I have to think that selection on the basis of being enclosed to not lose the water can't be everything because there's drippy, drippy forests in the Pacific Northwest and in Wisconsin that have plenty of truffles too. So I also think it's just animal dispersal is a driver that maybe if you're a mushroom that's already attracting something to you to eat you, maybe as somebody mentioned in the comments that you had developed spores that could sustain going through the digestive tract, maybe even benefit from it. Maybe you're making these volatile compounds already to attract. Why not pull yourself under the ground so that your spores all get mature all at the same time and only then attract somebody to eat you? So it's a very neat kind of road they go down. And I think any environment where there's going to be fungi, I would put it out there, should have some kind of truffle forming fungi. It's evolved convergently, which means many multiple times in many different lineages, kind of in the same way that the crab shape has evolved multiple times. It's not just like one lineage and then they branch out. It's like there's multiple things that make the same shape for some reason because it's very adaptive. And you can find that with truffles too. You find them in Ascomycota, Basidium mycota. So these high level changes in taxonomy. So like very different from each other, but you still
And I'm
find truffles.
guessing in your keynote address at the conference, when you talk about this, you'll have images to go with it that'll kind of
Yes,
help.
it's a lot more interesting with pictures,
Yeah.
which there are a lot. I did also see there was a question about what does ectomycorrhizal mean, and I
Yes, I
couldn't
was
do
just going
that
to ask you
with
to
my
address
hand.
that.
But
Yeah.
I could do it with pictures, but I don't have them. So it would be that the tree has its roots, and at the tips of the roots are the root tips, and they get very fine. And then you have the very fine, silky threads of the mycelium. And ectomycorrhizal, the mycelium is going to make a little net around the root tip. And with that net can be very loose or it can actually be very close, and it can affect the formation of the root tip. They can look quite different depending what fungus is with them. And that individual fungus will sometimes be very choosy about its partner, and the tree might be very choosy too, and they're communicating kind of with chemicals to make that partnership. And then I think of it kind of like a business deal, or maybe more like a friendship where you're trading. Um, and they will have something the other one needs. Maybe there will also be this is where people talk about the potential for like communication in general between trees. This is something where it's like the details are definitely still being worked out from the scientific end, that we wouldn't want to be like, yes, we know that this is how it works, and we can prove that it's this. It's pretty difficult in the environment to prove that kind of thing. It turns out that it's not like some other mechanism, but the idea is a strong one.
Well, and so Minjing, I think is her name, wrote out ecto
I love that.
outside, mycofungus rhizal root. And so it's an
Perfect.
interchange, what you're saying, interaction between those things. Oh, Min. Okay, thank you, Min. I'm sorry if I didn't do your name justice. But thank you for writing that out, because I think, yeah, what you spoke to Mariah is helpful, and then seeing it written out also was helpful. And it's fascinating because what I hear you saying is there are these interactions, but we don't know all of what the interactions are. And my understanding is that mushrooms are really skilled at creating new chemicals that are needed in the environment. So they're responsive. Not only, it's not like they're just creating any chemical, it's like what's needed. So they're very sensitive. That hypha is very sensitive to what the environment
And
is
that's
needed.
that's the evidence of the communicate, that there must be some kind of chemical signaling that's being picked up when it's being laid down and, back and forth. It's
Yeah,
very cool.
so fascinating. So, in terms of kind of bringing our conversation, because we've been speaking for almost an hour, and
Yeah.
I just one other question I thought might be might be good to address, and then I thought we could talk a little bit about exactly what you're going to offer at Mycelium and about Mycelium Mysteries. But Trish was asking, what type of environment are you finding truffles in Wisconsin, under specific trees, wetlands, etc.? So if you want to give a little taste of that, and just to mention to everybody, Mariah is going to be leading a truffle foray, as was mentioned earlier, at the conference, and she's going to be doing her keynote on this. So she'll provide a little bit here, and then if you want to go really in depth, go and spend time with her at the conference.
Yes. So my brief version, if I can get myself to do that, is ectomycorrhizal trees. So we kind of went over what ectomycorrhizal means, and you can find out if you search, like, is this tree ectomycorrhizal? But I can give you a few right off the top. Oaks, hazelnuts, hickories, pines, spruces, all of those should have some truffle forming fungi associated with them, that could be associated with them. When I asked a major expert in the field, and I'm going to write her name here, Roseanne Healy. Her research is awesome, and if you're ever having a dull moment and want to read some truffle papers, her research is out there, and she really focused on the Midwest truffles. And she told me when we were out hunting, and I was like very new to it and asking how, she said, basically any ectomycorrhizal tree, find it, dig around it, see, there could be something there. The ones I've found them under so far has been hazelnuts. So our native hazelnut, Corylus americana, and then there is the European hazelnut, Avellana, and then you get these hybrids that people sometimes plant between the two. I have found them under the native hazelnuts and what's probably hybrid hazelnuts so far. But also there have been ones that I know about in this region found with hickory, and ones found with oaks. So that's my tree bit. The next bit is, I think they like a sandy loam soil. That's a vague impression I have. It's been that's been there when I found them. And I've also heard that they like a sand in the soil. If you think about it, one of my other rules of thumb is that if you are having a really bad time digging, the animals that are supposed to be dispersing these are also having a bad time digging, and probably the truffles aren't going to be there. That's a very rough, just kind of like forager's instinct about it. The other forager's instinct is look for animal digs.
Sure.
Yeah, and you can see about how deep. So the ones I've found have been only about this deep, like not very. And then when you find them, they're with the roots. So just like with chanterelles, you see them fruiting along a root. You can kind of follow the seam. And other than that, it's kind of like just keep digging, or find a friend with a trained truffle dog. And I can also speak to, if you're trying to train a truffle dog, do it with fresh or dried truffle material, not truffle oil. And any dog that can do what they call scent work can, and I wrote it in the chat just because I misheard it the first time and couldn't understand what people were telling me about, but scent work, like, it's a specific type of training that they can do with a lot of different purposes. If your dog can do that, if it's trainable with that, apparently that is good. That's all you need.
So fascinating. I'm so excited that you're bringing this topic to Mycelium Mysteries this year. I think it's going to add a lot of fun to the forays. We have other fun forays that happen there as well. And I think this is just going to add a lot of delight to go out and look for them. I'm wondering if you, since we're kind of coming to the close of our hour, if you could talk a little bit about Mycelium Mysteries and what you think is special and unique about the Women's Mushroom Conference that's happening in September.
Okay. Well, sorry, I was just answering someone's question in the chat about truffles. I got super distracted. So could you repeat it?
Yes, well, let's see what you said. She says, try airing butter or olive oil.
Yeah, someone's like, oh, I want to eat the truffle, but it goes, they want the fresh, she wants the fresh truffle experience, but then like not the extracted truffle oil. And it's like, if you take a little bit of truffle and it's a nice fresh truffle and you have your packet of butter or maybe a little open bowl of olive oil, kind of, there's chefs much better than me who knows how to describe this, but put it in the same space and the aromatic compounds are fat soluble. So just in the air, they'll go into the fat and then you take the fat away, you can keep that and it kind of extends it. I don't know the shelf life of that honestly after that, but I have to imagine it keeps it a little bit more stable than in the truffle because yeah, those smells and those truffles, they go pretty weird, pretty fast. Um, just as a fresh truffle.
Yeah. And Trish, I'm sorry, I think your question is going to get a little too complicated for the time frame we have. So it sounds like maybe we'll have that discussion another time.
Right, WMS, and I will answer it.
What's that?
I was saying if she writes into my emails or maybe the Mycological Society emails, I'll get back to you.
And actually, I have two things I want us to mention. One is, and we're talking a lot about foraging, and it's foraging is a complicated topic, and doing on a Zoom call, we really can't do it full justice. But where we can do justice, the Wisconsin Mycological Association is partnering this year with Mycelium Mysteries to offer their ID course that is set up to help with identification and offer a potential for certification. Do you want to say just a little bit about that course? It's a pre-conference workshop that we're hosting, and maybe Mariah, you could just say what the benefit of taking that course is for even some of these questions that people are asking about mushroom ID.
Yeah, so this is a class that we developed at the request of the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and DATCP Consumer Protection, I think, is in there. Okay, there was a law that was passed that mushrooms that were sold to fresh foraged mushrooms, I should say, that are sold to restaurants and grocery stores in the state of Wisconsin have to be done by a certified identifier. And they were like, they didn't want to develop the class. They asked the Wisconsin Mycological Society to. We thought about it and developed it. And the class was developed basically by Tavis Lynch and Melissa Klotka working together, putting a lot of hours in, and the whole board had input into thinking about what the inclusion list, because we had also to make a list of which mushrooms were going to be okay to sell this. And you might notice there's lots of other places you might buy mushrooms to eat that aren't covered by this. Apparently, it's that there's an expectation of safety at restaurants and grocery stores that's much higher than, say, a farmer's market or with your friend, and so on. So ultimately, it was kind of like if we didn't do it, somebody else was going to. And in the end, I think it's good because it promotes chefs feeling more confident in using fresh wild foraged mushrooms in their dishes. And it's been really good. There's been so many people who have taken this class because it certifies you to do this. If you take the test and pass it, you can then go do make these sales, and you're among the people who can legally do it. But also, many people take it without the certification test, so you don't have to take the test and it costs less, and it's a learning experience. The whole thing is developed to make sure that you're competent enough to be able to sell to a restaurant. That's actually a pretty high bar, but we've really packed it in to this relatively short class. but that covers a lot, and with visuals, with the PowerPoint, and kind of a back and forth with the instructor and with the teaching assistant, where you can ask your questions. And also we do a lot of, it's not technically part of the class, it's more about identification, and how to, the food safety of having collected those mushrooms. But there's more to it than that, because we love to talk about fungus. So people always ask questions about, well, how do I find this? Where there's matsutake, one of the really desired mushrooms right here in Wisconsin. We have a species of matsutake that has that like cinnamony, stanky odor that people love. But where do you find it? Our teachers know, and they love to share and like give those hot tips about location, foraging, because location is also part of ID. So some of it's just in the class, and some of it is kind of like ask a little and you'll get a lot. Our teachers for this are going to be Melissa Klotka, who was a part of developing it, and Emily May King is her TA. And Emily May is from the north of Wisconsin. Melissa's from the south, so it covers, you know, people with experience in a lot of different places. So this is going to be offered as a pre-conference workshop. There's even more about the class on our website. And that's just about the class from WMS's perspective. And we link, I think, to the Mycelium Mysteries pre-conference on that page as well. I think it's, the link is here link. I'll grab that.
And we'll throw it in there.
Okay, good.
Sure,
but that has a lot of, like, it lists the inclusion on that page. You should be able to see the list of certified identifiers, and you can see a lot of information I probably threw on that page, including our Wisconsin wild mushroom currently approved species list, all curated to be something that we confidently felt we could teach in the time frame allotted. So you'll not see things that you can
if you
mistake.
can come out in person for that course, please do. It's going to be a great day, immersed in the Women's Mushroom Conference held by Women's Space. They do offer the course other times with other teachers, but it's a really special opportunity for us to partner with the Wisconsin Mycological Association and the female teachers. So thank you for partnering with us on that, Mariah, and the rest of the group. So the other thing I wanted to mention, I saw some of you, and I know some of you are from other places, you may not be able to come to the conference. On our classroom, we have workshops on mushroom identification, both some videos and audios that we've recorded at past conferences. So you can go to the classroom and do some learning there too, from recordings. And then, you know, the Wisconsin Mycological Association does Zoom calls, and they also have some other resources on their site as well. So both our site and the Wisconsin Mycological Association sites are very good resources. So with that said, I'm hoping you can say a few words, take a little bit of time to talk about Mycelium Mysteries and why, you know, you teach there and why you think it might be a special environment for people to consider coming out to.
Well, I think it's very special. I have my badge here from one of the years, and I kind of was going to start here just when I arrived, and you guys had this all planned out that we were going to have name badges, but you were going to find a creative way to kind of respect your own values about the ecosystem and have created something beautiful and not just like throwaway. I was like, oh, this is really special. These people have sat down and thought carefully and brought everything into alignment. And the food feels like that. The community feels like that. The choice and workshops. And I also was really impressed by the blending, the same blend of like science and tradition, enjoyment and seriousness that I enjoy in WMS, in the Wisconsin Mycological Society, but in this all women's conference that does move a little bit more toward the spiritual, the artistic, and the tradition, but definitely isn't afraid to keep the science and isn't afraid to keep the spirit of inquiry, which is what I really love, is an inquiry that's in the traditional herbalism and in the scientific as well, that really are, you know, two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways. But, you know, my biggest fear going in was going to be that if I brought up a dissenting thought or like, I read some research that says that's not true, that people were going to be upset by me or shut me down. And that was the opposite. And I felt really respected. Um, and I felt really challenged in a good way to think about other people's sources of information or where they might have learned stuff and learn things that I would not learn anywhere else. I love learning around other women. I do think that if I went to the same conference, but it wasn't all women, it would feel different for a lot of different reasons, including just kind of ways people are raised. Um, I also felt really respected as a woman who's not particularly feminine, which was another one of the like fears I had going in, like even in the mission statement, the like, that might have made me go, maybe they're gonna feel that it make me feel that I don't belong here. But nope, women who are just like don't care about being pretty or anything is like totally fine. And if you're not someone who's the nurturing type, you're totally fine. As long as you're cool with respecting everybody who's there, and it's and which is so easy to do. And yeah, so that was like all of the things I was a little bit concerned about were the opposite. And then there were lots of things that I didn't even realize how much teaching to all women was going to feel different and was going to feel really rewarding. And like people who I had taught to before on the trail being willing to ask me questions that I hadn't heard from them on the trail. And I don't know if they were consciously doing that, but um, yeah, it brings out a different kind of experience. And also just the food is great and the people are great. And we see baby turtles sometimes at this spot. And it's just really cool.
Well, one of the biggest things I know for me and for my team is that we are held in nourishment. And I think everything you described is a form of nourishment. Nourishing each other food-wise and nourishing each other in community and, nourishing each other's ideas and fostering the growth and the stretch that we can all do. And conservation is a topic we've talked about that's very controversial, and I know we don't have time to get into that, but that's such an important topic that we've brought to the forefront. And certainly people have been nervous about bringing out ideas in that realm that are not popular, but they've been very well received. And I think we have to have those conversations, and I think women are prepared to have those conversations. And it's really beautiful because we have an opportunity to nourish in lots of different ways, and we all bring that to the table. So thank you for your willingness to teach in that space and to be a part of being a keynote this year. We're super excited about that, and doing your truffle foray. And I know you're also going to do some helping with the extensive ID table, and I know that you'll bring great contributions to that as well. Are there any last words or pieces of wisdom you'd like to drop before we turn it back over to Shari for our giveaways for tonight?
Just that I really love that back and forth. As I said, I put my email in the chat, and although I'm not always on the email train, I can get back to you, and I can also put my phone number in the chat if that works better for people for your mushroom picture ID needs. I do that for a lot of my friends. I do that for a lot of people in WMS. And while it might not be immediate getting back to you, I will try or send you to resources. So
Wonderful. And if anybody gets a chance, we should drop our video that we'll drop a link in the follow-up email. There's a beautiful little clip with you and Lauren talking about a mushroom that you both are intrigued by, and you're talking about the name of it. And it's one of my favorite little clips. So if you get a chance to watch that and watch Mariah and her friend talk about this mushroom, it's a really it just shows the delight that you both bring to the mushroom world. So thank you, Mariah, for being here, and thank you everybody for listening and participating in this community conversation. And I'm going to turn it over to Shari, and we'll see what kind of giveaways we're going to offer.
Wow, thank you. There's a lot to sit here and absorb from the conversation. Thanks, Mariah, and thanks, Linda. I'm really excited to look for truffles and go on your foray. And it makes sense. I know you'd mentioned Eleanor Shavit, is that her last name? And it was different
Davitz, I believe.
truffles. Yeah, so that makes sense, that they're in sand in the
Mhm.
desert, and they're in sand here. So I was thinking, yeah.
Hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, and I love how she talked about it, and she would show that you could see it in like the early morning and the evening when there would be shadows, and you
Mm.
could see the shadows of the humps of the truffles in the desert, and that's one thing that I remembered from her talk that was really fascinating. Okay, so it is time to give away a mushroom apron. And I'm not sure what color you're gonna get. And let me turn off the chat here, and I'm gonna open up my screen to see you all, and then I can do that. And if you've been off camera, now is a good time to turn your camera on so we can see everybody's beautiful face and see who's here. And we're gonna go ahead and give that apron away. And how about Joella? I have a first name, Joella. Yeah, she's excited there, waving. I see you, Joella. So you've got that mushroom apron. And what you want to do if you're one of our winners, please send an email to herbwomen@gmail.com. There, and Courtney just put it in the chat for you. So go ahead and copy that email and send us an email with the item that you want. Now, um, the bundle of 2 workshop recordings. I just figured this out when we were on the call tonight. I thought it was 2 individual ones, but it's a beautiful bundle. And the bundle is Basic Foundations of Mushrooms with Ingrid Doddart. And the other one is Mariah, who led a workshop titled Our Collaborative Myco Book. And her it morphed into something different over the weekend. And what I really liked, one of the things that I do as being one of the managers of the Herb Women Classroom is I listen to a lot of these recordings. And the one thing that I really appreciated about Mariah, and that's why I mentioned it for a giveaway, is that she talked about she brought all these different books and resources, and the idea was for everybody to pull a picture, a poem, a sketch, or something into a book. It didn't work out, and so she morphed the workshop into describing all of these books and pamphlets and things, and it was absolutely fascinating. What I really love, Mariah, is she told why she liked it, where she got it, the uniqueness of it, what about the book she liked. So what's really great about that, pairing it with the Basic Foundations of Mushroom recording, is you can listen to the different books and things and see which one you resonate with, and then go out and procure that item for yourself so that you figure out what resonates with you about that about those books, and it goes really well with Ingrid's talk as well. And we'll list those individual recordings in one of the follow-up emails. And let's see, how about Sabina? I see Sabina, there she is. Go ahead, give us a wave and send your contact information to herbwomen@gmail.com. So it's a bundle of 2 recordings. Okay. So we mentioned Rose a couple of times. I know I put some things in the chat about what she's talking about, and Mariah knows her and added that I think she even talked about when I mentioned the state mushrooms and things. She's like, there's mushroom stamps too. So we have a lot of women that are really intrigued and enthusiastic about mushrooms, and Rose is certainly one of them. So for this one, you need to be able to attend in person. So if you could find on the bottom, there's a react, or not a react, but where is it? Where you can raise your hand. And if you can't raise if you can't raise your hand on the screen, go ahead and put your hand up. If you can attend in person, because this is an in-person giveaway for the pre-conference, it's a 3-hour foray. Raise your hand either with the reaction button or physically. So I see a couple people. Let me just look here. All right, let's see. How about Jamie? I see Jamie with your hand raised. Jamie. So Jamie, you've won that pre-conference foray with Rose Tercey. And please look for our emails after this. I know we're going to offer some discounts for you to attend. We'd love for you to join us. We're looking for more women to register to join us for this exciting transformative weekend. If you can't make it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have pre-conference workshops that are all day on Thursday. We put a bunch of those links in. We'll include those in your follow-up emails. You can come all day Thursday. There's workshops Thursday night. Linda is teaching mushrooms in the kitchen. And if you want to learn about the nourishment
And apothecary.
and the apothecary. So if you want to learn on how to cook with mushrooms and make mushroom medicine, come and spend some time with Linda. And she's always generous with making products and having you take them home. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn there, but she's always generous with that in her teachings. I know at least you're going to be eating something with mushrooms in it for sure. So please join us there. So if you'd like to unmute and say welcome, thank you, and goodbye to Mariah and Linda. Thank you everybody for attending
Thanks,
tonight.
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Great to see
you.
all your beautiful faces.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Good
So
night.
much.
Bye,
Good night.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.